Double and triple jumps are back. Kind of. So I don't take myself as a phenomenal player here in Brawl Stars or anything like that. I think I'm solid enough to give good tips whenever new abilities, new characters come out. But there are a few things that I feel like I excel at, such as the brawlers that I specialize, I would say. But there's one thing in particular that I feel like I'm overqualified for at this point, putting in hundreds and hundreds of hours, and that is Dynamike tech. Which brings us to today's video. Ever since the update dropped, I've been trying to develop some new Dynamike tech, exploring different options when it comes to double and triple jumping, and how to play Dynamike in a more advanced way, seeing that he is capable of doing so. I do have to say Dynamike is in a much better place overall inside of Brawl Stars as a whole, which is great. But it does feel like some of the allure of Dynamike gameplay has been lost because of the change. But today I'm hoping to give you guys some of the tools that I found out in order to actually double and triple jump here in this game with Dynamike. So before we get into the advanced stuff, I first want to get into the things that we can still do with Dynamike that aren't super crazy hard to perform. Of course, we all know that the double jump with the basic attack plus the super still works in the game. Because of this, one of the best kill confirms that Dynamike has when you're in a pinch still works, though it does take a little bit of practice. And I am of course talking about when someone's going in on you, you drop down the double jump and you lay down a stick where they're going to land. When someone is knocked back by Dynamike's super, it's effectively a small stun where they can't do anything. So of course, where the practice needs to come in is knowing where they're going to bounce off of your super so you can have a hand-delivered stick waiting for them. But next up, moving along to the double and triple jumps, which still work here in this game, and I'm going to be telling you guys all the different methods that you can utilize that I know of right now after workshopping Dyna. So the only way in order to pull these jumps off without doing just the basic one basic attack and super for the double is we need to use wall manipulation. Now it does feel kind of lame that we need to use walls in order to double and triple jump now, but you'll be surprised how abundant the availability is in matches in order to pull these off. At the bare minimum, you're going to need a 1x1 tile wall, though it's much easier to pull off when you have more available to you. You can also utilize the edges of a map, gaps in the map that come in many shapes and sizes, such as this here or water. You can even do it on cacti in Showdown, and believe it or not, even destroyable objects such as skulls and whatever these thingies are. Basically anything that's going to impede your jump distance. So it's safe to say there's a lot of availability out there in order to pull this off here in Brawl Stars, but how do we perform it? Visualizing tile distance is going to be very important to practice here with this new version of double and triple jumping with Dyna. So for the important metrics that you guys need to keep in mind and practice visualizing through training here is number 1, Dynamike's max distance with his basic attack is 3 tiles, standing on the 4th. When we throw down the stick, he jumps all the way to the very end. And Dynamike's max distance of his super jump is 5, standing on the 6th tile for visual purposes here. We throw it down and get the entire jump animation and land on the final tile there. So with that in mind, in order to use wall manipulation in order to double and triple jump, we need to be standing at least 1 tile in from the max distance of the jumps animations. So a good way to visualize this in order to get it down so we can consistently use it is where you land should be ideally smack dab on the wall so we can get the most air time out of our jumps. This definitely comes with some exceptions, seeing that you don't need to be exactly 3 tiles away in order to cut off your jump. You can get much shorter cancellations with the air time, but in my opinion, it's much better to practice one consistent distance so we can keep that in our minds as we're getting this down visually. This animation cutoff gets increasingly more easy with the width of tiles that you're utilizing, where a 1 tile width is going to be the hardest to utilize, but still possible. 2 tiles just gets easier to do it on. 3 tiles is a cakewalk here, and then anything exceeding 3 tiles is going to be 100% guaranteed to shorten your distance, seeing that it's the maximum jump distance for Dyna. It can be seen with this type of animation here, though these aren't that abundant in Brawl Stars, or just the cancellation from a edge of a map. But if you have these very thick walls, they're not that crazy hard to pull off, believe it or not. So the training cave, in my opinion, is going to be a phenomenal place to get this down, seeing that we're practicing with the most difficult thickness of walls in order to pull this off. It's much easier to pull this off without angles if you're just basically running at the wall face first, but angles are a little bit trickier to get down, though you still can with practice. So for example, that sweet spot 3 tile that gives you the most animation airtime, if the angle gets too wide, some of the distances that you've already mapped out don't end up working. But this will definitely just take some practice on your own here in order to still get the cutoff, but in time you'll be able to do it pretty consistently. But now it's time for the triple jumps. As of now, through testing, I've only been able to come up with 2 different ones. I'm sure there's going to be more, but I think these 2 are going to be pretty easy once you get down the timing of wall canceling. Number 1, and in my opinion the hardest, is a basic attack super, but the super with a wall cancel plus another basic attack. So in order to pull this off, you're going to need to be able to visualize that 5 tile cut off for your super, especially when dealing with a 1 tile gap. You could definitely pull this off much easier on like a 3 tile gap or a 2. It's much more forgiving, but at least in Training Cave, dealing with a 1 tile gap, we'll be able to get it down the most difficult way possible so we can perform this much easier in multiple situations in game. So in practice, it should look something like this when running up to the wall. Timing is pretty important with this one. Seeing that we don't have a lot of time in order to throw out that 3rd stick for the final part of the triple jump, it's important, much like how it was the old way with Dynamike. You need to be very last second with your super so you can get time enough to throw down that 3rd stick. This one is definitely really tricky. I haven't been able to get this one down 100% either, but some other things that help out: if you're too close, you can kind of kite back a little bit. You get like a millisecond of time in order to just kind of move back a little bit. You can see my head turn, which I think influences it just a little bit to actually be able to pull it off sometimes. But yeah, this one's just going to take practice. And then the next one that I think is going to be pretty easy, though I think the other one's going to be much more useful, is basic attack, wall manipulation, basic attack, and then super. In the 2nd basic attack and 2nd jump in the sequence, you need a pretty dang short hop in order to have time for the super jump. So like this. Let's see if I can get it here. There it is. Let's go. Again, this is going to be pretty dang tricky if you only have 1 thickness of wall to work with, but if you have multiple rows, it gets easier and easier, much easier. Can I do it on the 1x1? Hey, let's go. Oh my gosh, beautiful. I mean, if you have more walls than what your super allows you to jump over, which is pretty rare in Brawl Stars, you can do this 100% of the time. But a good example would be the edge of the map here. So like this, and then throw it out and you get the triple jump. Ooh, quad, let's go. So double and triple jumps still work in Brawl Stars, just a little bit different and harder to utilize here in the game, unfortunately. In my opinion, I still enjoy the other way to do it far better, right? But at the very least, in the meantime, if they're still trying to correct this, or if they want to make changes, we have something to practice. As Dynamike players, landing these are actually quite fun, especially now that the majority of people don't realize it works. It's pretty rewarding when you're able to land certain things like this and people pop off because they don't expect it. It's pretty cool. But there you have it, everyone. I hope this was useful to any aspiring Dynamikes out there, or Dynamike players who once were able to double and triple jump and enjoyed that gameplay for Dyna. There still is a way in order to do cool things with Dyna here. In the meantime, before we're waiting hopefully for them to change something with the airtime here. But yeah, if you found this video useful, of course, make sure to slap a like on it. I really appreciate that. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. Keep having fun with Brawl Stars, and we'll see you all in the next one. Adios and take care.